My name is Tom Maoli, and I have a daughter that goes to University, and I am an entrepreneur and a business developer. I've built, bought, sold probably about 10 different companies and started companies from scratch. For those of you who didn't get a chance to see my speech today, I think the most important thing that I would take from it, if I were sitting in your seat, is that I did not have a college education. I started right out of high school. So everybody sitting in this room today and everybody in the school has an opportunity that is unbelievable, because when I started, no one even knew what the word entrepreneur was. And I think you have an amazing opportunity to launch your career and your life into the stratosphere, because what you're learning today was not available to me when I started. So I think you need to take full opportunity, grasp it, and run with it, because this is an amazing school. And one of the students asked me, what would you do differently? And my answer was, I would have went to High Point University.
So can you tell us a little bit more about the industries that you've been involved in?
Well, the rest of the night? No. I started in the courier business, which is delivering packages. I was in global logistics, which is storing critical spare parts for medical technology companies, which is warehousing and distribution, and on a global basis. I was in the technology business. I was actually in the ice cream business. I had an ice cream company that I developed ice cream, and it was the only ice cream that was ever put into a can, because in the normal containers you get frostbite. You get ice on it and it gets frostbite. So I sold that company. I'm a real estate developer. I develop shopping centers, office buildings, residential projects. I've just recently started a technology company to develop apps with Apple and Google, Android. So I've been in multiple platforms and multiple businesses. I have a lot of knowledge in different industries, which across a lot of platforms. So it gives me the ability to analyze businesses and get into them.
Great. So with such a wide range of different industries that you've been involved in, a lot of people are really, they have in the mindset that they should stick with what they know. Whereas you clearly have ranged from technology to ice cream, and those usually aren't, if you want to be an expert in something, you're usually not an expert in both of those. So clearly you've been able to be diverse and be in different things. And how would you counter the fact that people say, like, stick with what you know?
Very interesting question, because I think it applies to everyone in this room. I think a true entrepreneur is capable of doing anything, because if they don't know it, they're up for the challenge. And when a true entrepreneur develops an idea, and when you develop that idea, it doesn't matter what it applies to. It could apply to ice cream, it could apply to coffee, it can apply to any business that's out there. You're developing an idea. Stick to what you know. If you're an accounting major, or you're going for a medical degree and you're going to be a heart surgeon, or you have a dental degree, clearly stick to what you know, right? But an entrepreneur is basically developing an idea, an industry, and I think an entrepreneur really can do anything, because once they come up with that idea and they're passionate about that idea, and they find a need and fill it, right? Because that's really what it's about. Find a need that doesn't exist and fill it. They become passionate about it. It doesn't matter what industry it's in. I think at that moment, a real entrepreneur has the desire to learn how to make that product better, how to launch that product, how to sell it, how to market it. And I think so a true entrepreneur can do anything. I really think it's just about desire, education, and when you find that need and you believe you have the niche to fill it, then you're going to go out and figure everything else out. And what you don't know, a good entrepreneur hires the right people.
That is a good tip. So as I know that you discussed in the university, like published for or broadcasted for the fact of your speech earlier, it was about emphasizing your interest and your business in the car industry. But as you discussed with us at the beginning, you said that you also were involved in real estate. Those are also very different things. Could you just give us a little bit of just a tidbit into both kinds of industries and just your experience in both of them?
Well, I've been involved in real estate, most of my life. Obviously, in real estate, there's a need, right? There's a need for housing, there's a need for shopping centers, there's a need for office buildings. I think it's about finding the right location for your product, the right product line that's going to sell and rent, and then understanding what the business is, and obviously looking at the return on investment, because that's important as an entrepreneur. You want to get a return on investment. You have to make a profit, right? And we're all here to make a profit. It's not a charity. We have to go out and make a profit, and we have to figure out how to make that profit. In real estate, there's proven formulas of how to make those profits. So I think it's a I don't want to say a cookie cutter industry, but it all comes down to where your location is and what the supply and demand are for that real estate. And there's market indicators, and there's market things that drive that, like interest rates, supply and demand, what the economy's doing. The car business is an interesting business because you're dealing in transportation, which I actually started in transportation, but it's a different way. I'm on the retail side of it. But when you're in transportation, there's cycles in the economy, and when car sales are up, service is down because people are buying new cars. But when car sales start dropping off, historically, your service departments start increasing because people need to repair their cars more. So there are clearly two different industries, although there is a real estate component to the car industry because you have to have the facilities, and they have to be built properly, and they have to be in the right locations. So there's a real estate component to that business also that applies to it. But again, I think as a true entrepreneur, when you find that need, something you'll love to do, and you find a need, and you believe that you can fill it, you go out and learn. And if you don't know, you'll hire the right people. It's interesting because I was working with my daughter Veronica on some of her accounting classes, and she was asking me questions on her accounting classes. And it's interesting because I never took an accounting class in my life. But I hired the right people. I hired accountants and I hired CFOs who knew how to do that, and I learned from them. So a true entrepreneur doesn't know everything, but they'll find the right person that does, and they'll put that person in place on their team.
Great. So entrepreneurship is all about the next big thing and how to be on top of things. So we know from a little bit of your background about global logistics and how you were ahead of that trend, and I believe in 1993 was around the time where you started with that. So what's your advice for people that are thinking of technology or just things that are the next big thing that people haven't caught on to next or caught on to yet, or just ideas that kind of go down that path of things that have never been done and dealing with discouragement and just how to kind of execute that?
Another interesting question. As an entrepreneur, I mean, obviously everybody has different beliefs. I think one of the things that an entrepreneur has to be careful of is looking too far into the future, coming up with an idea that they believe they can execute and that has value in a marketplace or in in the world, knowing that there's a need for it, right? And the question is how fast can that need grow, and how much resources they're going to put towards it. So I'm a believer in diversification. There's a theory behind entrepreneurship, whereas pick one thing and go after it. I believe in diversification. I believe in having cottage industries that exist in the world today, like real estate, like car dealership businesses that are going to produce my cash flow so I can live my normal life. Now, as an entrepreneur, I can take any risk I want, where some entrepreneurs will have this dream and this idea and clearly go after it if you believe you can do it, but you still have to pay the rent, right? You still have to pay the rent. It's almost like a musician. Right, you go out there, or an actor wants to go out there and act and have an acting career or a music career. You still have to pay the rent and you have to eat. So how do you do that? And that's why I've created what I've created, so that I can have those cash flows, my rent's paid, my bills are paid. So now as a serial entrepreneur, I can take any risk I want. I can come up with an idea and take any risk I want. And I have the resources to do it. And I have the resources to put behind it because I have the basis of, of the cottage industries. So, I think it's important to clearly come up with ideas on a daily basis, look into the future, where they're going. I think you need to analyze how far out that need is. Sometimes you're too early. Sometimes you're too early in the marketplace. You come up with an idea and you try and launch it, and no one wants it, no one's interested in it, and all of a sudden, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. So I think timing is important also, but I clearly think, as an entrepreneur, you have to analyze every idea that you come up with that you think may have viability.
So as you were touching on that subject about ideas, so us in the Entrepreneurship Club, we all have great ideas all the time, and we instill in events like our Pizza and Pitch to just allow people to pitch their ideas and talk to people. So like you said, we all need to make money and we all have ideas. What do you think is the best way to take those ideas and actually turn them into something profitable, and how to really just make it happen?
Well, it's very, listen, execution is everything. I just took my younger daughter to a new music instructor because she likes to sing. And he sat there and he asked her questions, and he said, what do you want to do? You want to sing theater? You want to sing pop? He was interviewing her, kind of. And she said, well, I like it all, but I want to write music. And he said, okay, well, there's millions of writers in the world. There's people that sit in their room with a guitar and they'll come up with songs and they're great and they're fabulous and they all make sense and they all rhyme and if you heard them you'd sing along with them. But now how do you execute them? And that's really an interesting part of entrepreneurship, is how do you execute them? How do you get them out there? And how do you go out and raise that capital? And I think the first thing, and I think the two ideas that I heard tonight upstairs in the pitch class were very interesting, but I think one of the things that's very important for an entrepreneur is to protect your idea. Is how do you protect your idea? Because you can go out there and pitch it to a company and they'll say, I'll get back to you and think about it, and all of a sudden you find out that new cars have red bumpers on them because that was your idea. So protection is very important in your idea. I think you need to think and start looking at things like patents and copyrights and studying those portions of it, because ideas need to be protected. When you have a good idea, you need to be protected, and then you can go out and pitch it. Then you can go out and sell it, and it's finding, it's kind of trial and error. You have to go out and are you pitching it to a private equity group or a venture capitalist group where you want to raise capital because you want to launch your product, or are you pitching it to somebody because you want them to buy your idea and give you royalties? So I think there's two different avenues.
Right, that's great. So I do have some more questions, but I want to take a break and open it up to the floor to see what kind of questions that you guys have. So let's start off with Ryan.
I heard you mention that you recently got into the app development side of things, and we actually have a ton of students who are really interested in developing apps, either for their unique idea or some kind of software they want to come out with. What would be your advice for the very beginning of app development? I know it can get really pricey, but are there certain companies that help you out at the beginning, or certain steps you can take to make sure it succeeds?
App development is very pricey. If you're going out there, it could cost you $1 million to develop an app. And if you go into the app stores, in whether it be Google or Apple, there's millions of apps now, and you could probably find duplication of the same apps that are in there. That there's 2, 3, 4 of the same apps out there. So now, what's the differentiator? The differentiator is obviously usability, and then it's execution. Right? So what we talked about earlier, how do you execute this? How do you have, I wrote a song, sounds great, love it, how do I get it published? How do I get it to the marketplace? So now you're into marketing. It's interesting because the app company that I developed, I ran into the same issue. I started looking out there and getting prices for the apps, and there were millions of dollars to go out there and create an app. I don't know how to program. I'm an entrepreneur. I just have the idea. I'm going to go out and find someone that's going to help me do this, right? The right person. So I looked for apps, I looked for app developers, I went out there, I got prices up to $1 million to create an app. I went out there and found an app developer, and I used something which in business classes, hopefully somewhere down the road you'll start learning this, is to be able to use your capital, other than money, to be able to get people on board with your idea. So I gave him stock in my company. I used paper capital. I used stock in my company to get him on board, to pitch him the idea, gave him stock in the company. He loved the idea so much that he said, I'm willing to take the risk, put my time and effort into developing this, hoping that when it launches, whatever the $1 million that you were going to pay me is now going to be worth, $50 million. So there's, when you get into financing and finance classes, hopefully you'll learn about how to use stock, and it's a paper commodity, to be able to buy things and resources without having to come out with capital.
So it seems like you would rather launch an idea than you would invest in someone else. What is your opinion on why you'd rather do it yourself and almost take on as many? Well, you said you wouldn't take on as many hats, but what's your opinion between investing in a company and doing it yourself?
I'm not against investing in a company, although I just, as an entrepreneur, I just feel like if I'm going to crash, if my car's going to crash, I want to be the one to crash it. So if I'm going to give all my money to someone, I have no idea how they're going to drive that car. Hopefully they have the pitch helmet that I saw today, so they can stay on the road. But if I'm going to crash, if my car's going to crash, I want to be the one to crash it. And if it's going to win the race, I feel like I'm the one that can win it. So that's the difference. I'm not against investing in other companies, but I'd rather invest in my idea.
Brad?
So going along with crashing, entrepreneurs tend to crash every once in a while. Have you had any crashes or failures?
Oh, absolutely.
And what are they? What have you learned from them?
I've totally had crashes, obviously, clearly, you look back and you learn from them, and try and figure out how you make sure you don't do it again. One of the key risks that, as an entrepreneur, that I would look at is risk management. And I don't know what the courses are here on risk management, but risk management is very important because, you need to manage what the risk is and how much of your capital that you're putting into your idea, because again, you need to eat and pay your rent. You want to reserve some of your capital for a failure, right? So, and then as you start making money and your ideas become successful, how much of your successes do you want to risk on future ideas? So risk management, I think, is very important, and that's where paper capital like stock can come into play, where you're using that and you're not using your own capital. So that's what I've learned. The other thing is, obviously, if your idea is large enough and you take it to the public markets, you're raising capital through public markets and you're not using your own money. Where you're, as a starting entrepreneur, you may go to banks and they want you to personally guarantee the money that they're lending you. So that risk management is a very important part of the whole game.
Jacqueline?
Have you ever considered buying and selling businesses? More like a turnaround specialist?
I have. No, I've actually done it.
Oh, you have?
I've done it, yes.
What's the difference?
I've actually done it. No, it's a great strategy. Going into companies, analyzing them, looking at what clearly, with experience, you learn what's broken, because to me, it doesn't matter if you're running a car dealership or a logistics business or a college institution. It's a business, right? And I could probably walk through. I mean, this college doesn't happen to be broken, but there's one in New Jersey that I know is broken, and I could probably walk through there and figure out what is wrong and how to turn it around. So it's clear there's clearly opportunities, and you can do that. The question becomes is, when you take a company and you do a turnaround, you have to be of the mindset that that you're going to make that capital, and then you're going to go on to the next opportunity and try and find that same same issue company that has same or different problems and turn that company around. But somewhere in between that process, there's a dry spell. It takes time to find that next company, because you may go to 3, 4, 5 companies and analyze them to try and find out where those issues are. And maybe when you've analyzed them and you've looked at the value of what you have to pay for it, you realize I have to put X into it and it's not going to be worth that much when I'm done. So there's a lot of analysis and a lot of time and effort that goes into that. And the question becomes is, if you're actually in the turnaround business, when you take a company and turn around and now it's cash flowing and it's making all this money, do you really want to sell it, or do you want to take reap the rewards of your turnaround? So I think that's, the question is, what business are you in?
Well, I do have one question before I forget.
Sure.
So have you had any experience working with businesses internationally or anything? I personally study international business. So as an entrepreneur, I would love to do business abroad or start a business in another country. Do you have any experience on that, or just any advice, or just what's your take on it?
Well, my logistics company was in 750 cities around the world. I was in every major country that you could name, so I have a lot of experience on international business. I think if you ask me from a high level what the most important thing to when you get into international business is, clearly you have to deal with the laws, right? Clearly they have different laws than we do, so you have to learn those. So I couldn't tell you what the law was in China, and I'm not sure that anyone in the room could tell you, but we're clearly, as entrepreneurs, going to find somebody that knows that law in China, and we're going to hire them to make sure that we don't break the law, right? And I think culture is a major issue. I think you have to understand their culture and how they operate their business. I think culturally, if you can understand and divide, the countries and be multicultural, you can be very successful internationally.
Do you think that knowing the language was a big issue, or like lack of knowing the language you were in so much, or do you think because all of us speak English, but we do have a decent amount of exchange students in this room as well, so that's why the benefit of like speaking other languages too. What's your take on that? Was there any challenges? Clearly
challenges, but interestingly enough, I think that if you know the language, it's clearly an advantage, right? It's another tool in your toolbox. You can go into into a country and you can network. Like you can go to Japan and you can network with people at a bar, at a restaurant, and meet people and network. But when it comes to actually doing business in that country, I actually brought interpreters in. So I wasn't capable of speaking the language, but I brought interpreters in. There's import-export laws in the logistics business where you're moving stuff into countries and it has to go through customs, and there's duties and taxes, and there's all different tax laws. You hire an expert that knows that. So I would go into meetings and in Japan, and I would take an interpreter in. So that's how you get around it, is finding the right person that can help you through that process. But clearly knowing the language is an advantage. It's a tool in your toolbox.
Great. Does anyone else have any more? Okay, Veronica.
So obviously I've seen you do a lot of different business deals, but one of the things I know about you is that you really want to be involved in every single thing that goes on in your businesses, whether it's the littlest thing that happens in like the parts department of the dealership to like the biggest decision that could possibly be made in the business. So can you talk a little bit about that? I think that's really important.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously it's a philosophy, it's a business philosophy of how deep you want to go. As an entrepreneur, you hire the right people and you have to trust them. But my philosophy is I need to understand every aspect of the business. If I'm going to be an expert at it, I need to know how the parts department works. I need to know how the service department works. If I'm going to be in the app business, I can't develop apps, but I'm surely going to sit down with the app developer and learn how he's doing it, how he programs it. I don't need to know the code, but I need to know something about it, because I want to be able to talk the talk, walk the walk, and I want to be able to step in and be able to pick up the pieces if that person leaves, walks away, decides they don't want to be a part of it anymore, or God forbid gets sick, or whatever. I want to learn what my business is about, so I learn every aspect of it. I go from department to department to learn. I don't do it. I don't stay there. I'm not sitting there every day, but I go in there to learn.
Wow.
What's been your most profitable business that you've had so far? Like what industry? Have you seen the biggest return on your investment?
Could you repeat the question?
So what industry have you seen like the biggest return on your investment?
What industry have you seen the most like return on your investment?
It's an interesting question. From a cash flow standpoint, it would clearly be my logistics business. From a and now it's the car business is very profitable, but from an asset value increased valuation, it would be real estate.
How did you get started? So you didn't have a degree. How did you start?
Had an idea and was driven and had desire to go out and execute it. It all starts with an idea, and there was a need for it, and I had the drive and I had the desire to go out and do it, and I had the mindset that nothing was going to stop me.
Would you like to share what idea that was?
Yeah, I started I thought maybe you were at the speech today, but yeah, I started in the courier business in 1982, and I started working for an attorney delivering packages, and I said, this is a business. And I decided that I was going to start it, and went out and started, getting some customers and growing it, and I was actually doing the deliveries myself. And then as the business started growing, I realized that I had no money in the business because I had receivables. I had to bill the customers, and I had no money to make payroll, so I went out and took a job, and I worked at 11 at night till 7 in the morning so that I could make enough money to make payroll. And then on the way home, I would slip flyers under customers' doors, hoping that they were going to call me the next day, and I just little by little built the business. So it's clearly, ground up, grassroots desire.
There's so many different businesses that you have, and your clear passion for working with young people. Do your companies ever have internships for college students?
Yes, I actually have one person from High Point right now that was working with me all summer as an intern. I actually coming back on fall break. He's going to be working with me. I have a couple students from Fairleigh Dickinson University that work with me. So the answer is yes.
Wonderful. And then what student that goes here is also still involved to this day, like conference calls, meetings via FaceTime, and phone calls throughout the school year. So it's like a year-round type of thing.
Yeah.
Great. Matt?
Also, following high school, how long did it take you to build your foundation to get that residual income so that way you could be more risky with your other investments?
Well, I don't remember the exact amount of time, but I want to say probably somewhere around 7 years. But statistics will tell you that that average business doesn't make money for 5 years. When you're starting a company, it doesn't make money. Statistics will tell you. It's, some make money in 3, some make money in 7, but the first 5 years are the toughest time during a business, launching a business. So it took me 7 years to get there, so I had the sustainable cash flow.
Brent?
As a serial entrepreneur, are you looking for to exit a lot of your companies that you start, or are you looking more for long-term investments? Of course, the real estate is more long-term, but with your app development and all that, are you looking to sell off, or?
As an entrepreneur, I have a saying: everything has a price. Everything's for sale. So if somebody wants to come in tomorrow and offer me a price, and I think it's, a premium for what I have, I'd sell it because I'll go start something else tomorrow. But on the flip side is I'm constantly looking for opportunities.
Haley?
I feel like a lot of times when we hear from serial entrepreneurs, a lot of times they, not necessarily now, but like in the past, they had struggled with like a work-life balance. How did you ever make time? Because it seems like you're doing so much, a lot, and you've done a lot in your past. What are some of the challenges you've faced with that, and like, have you been able to create a good work or a life outside of work? I mean, obviously, like, I don't know, but does that make any sense?
No, it makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
It takes a lot of time to learn that balance and learn how to compartmentalize your your business versus your personal life and your family life. And the more businesses you have, the harder it is. But the more businesses you have, as they become successful, you can put the right people in place so you can spend less time and they're managing that process for you. But I think as a startup entrepreneur, it's a very hard balance. It's a very hard balance. I think you have to compartmentalize it. I think the key is being able to shut it off and go back to it. Now I can do it. If you asked me, 25 years ago, I probably couldn't. 20 years ago, but now I can shut it off and go back to it. But it's also getting to the point in your career where you have sustainable income and you also have enough confidence level in yourself and your business and your people to know that by shutting it off, you're not going out of business.
CJ?
What was your process of finding the right people for the jobs you needed? And how did you know that they were competent enough to take it over?
Obviously, clearly resume. Right? You look at the resume, you look at their history, you look at what they've done and who they've worked for. But I think as an entrepreneur, if you're a passionate entrepreneur, you actually can feel someone's passion. You can tell when somebody's that seriously interested in taking on a project or being successful. And to me, passion is more valuable than education, because if you're passionate about it, they're going to be there, they're going to stick through it, they're going to get it done.
So another question that I had that's applicable for all of us is that even though you didn't get a college education, you are still our age. So what would you go back and tell yourself when you were our age, from 18 to 23, that what you know now that you would have told yourself back then? If I had the opportunity that everyone in this room has to be at High Point University, learning what you're learning today, learning entrepreneurship and business in a environment like this, that my career would have launched quicker, faster, and I would have been much further than I am today, believe it or not.
Back when you first started the career business, you briefly talked about your customers and how you found them. What would you change about it now?
Oh, it's a very simple answer. Social media. Social media, internet, electronic communications. Today, clearly everything's global. Depending on what your product is, what your business is, it's much easier today because you have that at your fingertips. You can contact so many people much more quickly. But it's clearly all about the computer. It's all about technology.
And on that as well, so you knew what you thought your customers' pain point as well. Was that their actual pain point, or did you find out that it was actually something else that they had a lot more problems with?
Pain point in what aspect?
In terms of the career business, how you were solving that problem for your customers. Was it the exact same as you thought it was?
No, I think as an entrepreneur, you got to listen to what your customers' needs are, right? You have to. It's very interesting because, obviously in the automobile business, it seems like you go in there, you open up a dealership and you sell cars and service them, and it seems simple, right? And most people that have been in the automobile business for years don't get it. And I go to national dealer meetings, and right now I'm probably one of the top 5 Lexus dealers in the country. And when I started, I wasn't. My dealership wasn't. And I go to the dealer meetings, national dealer meetings, and the global president of Lexus will come up to me and he'll say, well, what are you doing differently? And I joke with him and I said, well, I'm not going to tell you because then you're going to tell everyone else. But the reality of it is I took hospitality and implanted it into the automobile business because it's really about connection with your customer. So what was missing in that business is people believe the word services, I'm changing your oil. Well, that's not what service is. Service is taking care of your customers' needs, whether it's dropping them a car at their office when they need service on their car and they can't get there, or their wife is stuck in a shopping mall because she can't get the key in the car, getting out there, or whatever it may be. It doesn't really matter. It's taking care of your customer and connecting with them. So I took hospitality, dropped it into the automobile business, and my business is booming. So it's finding what that need is that the customer and being innovative about it.
Going off of that, talk about, tell them about Celebrity Motor Car as a company and how you brought hospitality to the car business through that, making everything like that.
Well, as I was just saying, I took Celebrity Motor. I developed the concept of celebrity motor car, and I had to have a marketing plan, and my marketing plan was what's going to make my customer feel different, and I wanted them to feel like a celebrity. I wanted them to feel that their money was so important that they felt like a celebrity. When they walked into my dealership, they felt so important that they were going to spend their money. Along with that, I took hospitality. My dear friend who was in the hospitality business, I brought him on. I didn't know hospitality. I mean, clearly I know how to be hospitable, but I don't know the hospitality industry. Brought him in and trained every single employee in the company on hospitality, how to treat a customer, how to connect with a customer. It's not just talking about your car, it's talking about your children and their family, and who's going to what college, and knowing that, and documenting it in a computer, so when the next time you come in, I already know where your child's going and what college they're going to and how they're doing and what your children's names are. So I've connected with you. You become part of the family. So once I did that, the business just kept snowballing. And it's interesting because I actually have an email that I received less than 30 days ago where I had a customer that said, I could have purchased my vehicle for $1,200 cheaper at another dealership, but I will not because your service and your people are so amazing that I won't leave you. So they're willing to spend more money.
That's great. I just I think that's fantastic, because I think no matter what industry everyone here plans to go into, because we have people that major in business, in interior design, in science and pharmacy, that is something that is applicable, like hospitality in every form.
But it's not just hospitality where you're connecting with that customer. The reality of it is sales is so important, and the first thing that you're selling is yourself. It's how you present yourself, how you sell yourself, and your confidence level. People can feel your confidence level. They can feel if you're scared. It's like a dog. A dog knows when you go up to them if you're scared, right? You go into a business meeting, they know if you're scared. They know if you're nervous. Your confidence level is everything. When you walk into a room and you can carry a room and a conversation, and your confidence level is so strong because you believe in yourself, you know that you're going to be able to accomplish whatever is thrown at you, you'll be successful.
Over the years, how much do you think that luck has come into play for you? A lot of times with entrepreneurs, the subject comes up of whether or not they've been lucky or not. And so how do you think luck plays into being a successful entrepreneur?
Well, I have a daily saying that I tell everyone, because when something goes well in the company and people start celebrating, I say, well, it's better to be lucky than good. But the reality of it is clearly there's luck involved in everything in life, but it's not really about luck. It's about, I was lucky to get a Lexus dealership because there's only a certain amount of them in the country, and it's a very valuable franchise, but it could have still been number 72 on the list. It's now number 4 on the list. It's what you do to it and how you operate it and how you execute on it. So yes, luck is important, but when you're in the right place at the right time, you need to seize the opportunity and take advantage of it, and hence High Point University, because you are in the right place at the right time.
So you do, as it's no secret that you do a lot of different things. What would you really say that your passion is, and when do you think you really discovered what your passion is?
I discovered it at a very young age, 10 years old. My passion is taking an opportunity, creating it, making it profitable, either keeping it, selling it, turning it around, creating value, and I don't really think it matters what industry it's in, but it clearly developed at a very young age, and once it's in you, as I said in my speech today, somebody came up to me afterwards and they asked me, so tell me what I can do, and I said, I think you need to just live your life being aware of how things work. Go to Starbucks, it's not just a cup of coffee, it's thinking as an entrepreneur about how does this work? How do they get their coffee? Where do they get it from? Who makes the tops to the cups? How does this all, how do they get the baristas? How do they train them? Why are they all in the green? Has anybody thought about why they're in green? I took a class on color psychology. There's a whole psychology behind colors. And green is because it creates the feeling of membership of a club. So Starbucks chose green because they wanted to feel people that they were a member of a club. Everybody wants to go to Starbucks because they feel like they're a member of a club. I'm in the Starbucks club. And Dunkin' Donuts uses orange. Orange creates hunger. It creates a sense of urgency. There's a psychology behind it. It's not just a cup of coffee. And I think as entrepreneurs, once you start thinking like that, that's how you come up with ideas.
So this seems to be like a habit that you do. As a successful entrepreneur, what do you think is one of your most successful or beneficial daily habits that you execute?
Well, obviously as a successful entrepreneur, there's many. As a starting entrepreneur, I think thinking that thought process is so important. It's like the building you're sitting in today. It didn't just fall out of the sky. It got here. People had to raise capital. They had to build the building. They had to put it out for bid so they could get the best price on it. Then they had to look at the resumes of the construction companies that were going to build it. How did this happen? I think if you can think that way, I think that you'll come up with ideas. You'll say, well, why aren't they doing it this way? Has anybody thought about this? So I think that's how you come up with ideas. I do that on a daily basis, but I also do that with people. I try and motivate people and try and get them motivated into what they're doing and get them thinking that way. Because as a successful entrepreneur, could you imagine? I have, over 500 employees. If all 500 of us thought like that, it would be a machine.
So, due to time, I will ask one last question.
Sure.
And then, will you be willing to stick around for a couple minutes
Absolutely.
after any questions? But so if you could just leave us with one last piece of advice that either you want to just reiterate from what you've said today, or something that we haven't touched on, something that you really just want to instill in us, what would that be?
The first would be don't let anyone ever tell you you can't do it, because that should be the first sign that you're on the right track. You, as an entrepreneur, have an idea. You need to go after your passion, go after what you believe in, figure out how to execute it, figure out how to get it done, because as I said in my speech today, and I don't know how many people in this room were there are many successful people, entrepreneurs, that have been told they can't do it. Steve Jobs was one of them. Steve Jobs was fired from Apple Computer. Fired. Took his job back, took the company out of bankruptcy, turned the company around, and now it is the most powerful and wealthiest company in the country. Fred Smith from Federal Express started Federal Express, wrote his college thesis for his business class on a worldwide overnight global delivery system and got a D. And took the company on, within a year, his investors grounded the airplanes, and he had no money for payroll. They wouldn't fund it because they weren't making enough money. They were losing money. Went to Las Vegas, played blackjack, got enough money to make payroll, got his investors back on board, got new investors, got the planes back up in the air, and now the company is worth $800 billion. Wow.
Well, thank you. It has been such a pleasure having you. One of our Entrepreneurship Club shirts.
Perfect.
So we just wanted to thank you again for coming and speaking with us. And so, great. And then you can stand in the back. We have a couple closing announcements, and then I'm sure people will flood you with questions.
Perfect. Absolutely.
So let's give it one more